Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
David Davis has accused banks and other European countries of a blame Brexit festival as more conservative tensions over Europe emerged. MPs joining the call for a vote on the government's Brexit plan, while Labour declared its closed and secretive strategy was causing huge anxiety and spooking the markets. Well, the pound shot up against the dollar overnight, gaining 2 cents as investors initially liked the sound of more parliamentary involvement in the Brexit process. But those gains ebbed away throughout the day, particularly during the Commons debate, as traders sensed that there wasn't going to be a major shift in the government's position. Still, sterling ended with the biggest gains against the dollar for a whole month. Here's Kieran Jenkins.
Just 111 days have passed since the referendum. Now the questions really are raining down on the Prime Minister, not least this one.
Should MPs have the final say, Prime Minister?
Not likely. MPs won't be allowed to veto Britain's position before triggering Article 50, but they will get a full parliamentary debate.
Jeremy Corbyn.
That gave Labour something to cheer about. And at Jeremy Corbyn's first PMQ since his re-election, he went after the fundamentals of what sort of Brexit the Prime Minister wants.
Can the Prime Minister now confirm that access to the single market is a red line for the government, or is it not?
Well, the right honourable gentleman has asked me this question before, and yes, he says it's a simple question, and I will give him the simple answer. What we are going to do is deliver on the vote of the British people to leave the European Union. What we are going to do is be ambitious in our negotiations to negotiate the best deal for the British people, and that will include the maximum possible access to the European market for firms to trade with and operate within the European market.
Well, insisting that Brexit means Brexit just about got the Prime Minister through the summer, but there's now growing pressure on both sides of the House for much, much more. Mrs May wouldn't even say, for example, whether Britain should be in or out of the single market. Now, holding that position, even in the short term, will be difficult, if not impossible. A galvanised Labour Party has published 170 questions on Brexit, some of which reeled out this afternoon when the Commons held a debate about holding a Brexit debate.
I have accepted, I've stood here and accepted there's a mandate for exit. There is no mandate for the terms. It's never been put to the country. It's never been put to the country. It's not even been put to the Secretary of State's political party, and it's not been put to this House.
If you tell your negotiator, your opposite number in negotiation, exactly what your priorities are, exactly what your top priority is, then it will make that top priority extremely expensive.
But even on the Tory benches, they leapt up to demand exactly that detail, as it dawned that leaving means something different to each of them.
My position is abundantly clear, and it's absolutely correct. You cannot be in both the single market and repeal the 1972 Act.
Few places should be more impatient to leave than Thurrock. 72% voted out.
When we said we were going to go, we should have left.
So it should have happened like the morning after, you reckon?
Yeah.
So are MPs meddling or doing their job?
But they represent the country, don't they? They represent the people of Great Britain. We haven't got anyone else to represent us, so it lies in their hands.
Who's holding it up?
Well, it's Parliament, isn't it? I mean, it's going to take them a couple of years to sort it, we know. But, I mean, they need to get on with it.
Parliament may not have a vote, but it will have a debate. And by then, possibly, some answers.
Well, in Westminster now, hot from the EU debate are the shadow Brexit Secretary, Keir Starmer, and the Conservative MP, Kwasi Kwarteng, who campaigned to leave the EU. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for coming on the programme. How wonderful to have you standing next to each other like this.
Thank you.
Kwasi Kwarteng, if I could start with you.
Sure.
Will you be campaigning as a Member of Parliament of the sovereign body for a vote on Article 50, for a vote on Brexit?
I don't think we need to have a an actual vote on Brexit, because if you want to vote on Article 50, the only reason you could want that vote is, I think, if you wanted to overturn the verdict of the referendum. I don't see why, if the mechanism to leave the EU is Article 50 and people have voted to leave the EU, I don't see why we need another vote on that.
So what is the point of parliamentarians when it comes to deciding the future of the nation on this very important issue, if you can't even vote on it?
Well, I think there's a whole host of things. I mean, the people decided that we're going to leave the EU, but the terms, the nature of the discussions, the negotiations, issues like the single market, these are things that the representatives of the people in Parliament, I think, have the duty, actually, to discuss.
Is that because you're afraid that you might lose the vote with a slim majority?
No, I don't think we would lose the vote. What I'm saying is that the referendum was definitive. 52% voted to leave the EU, and that's exactly what we'll be doing. And the mechanism by which we leave the EU happens to be the invocation of Article 50. So I don't see what the controversy is about that.
Keir Starmer, do you agree with that?
No, what we need is to know the plans that the government is going to put forward and to be able to scrutinise them. And today is a big victory because we were arguing for scrutiny. We were saying that the government must bring the plans to Parliament and allow us to see them and to question them on the plans. Now, they've never conceded that before. They conceded it just 10 minutes ago in the chamber. So that's a really big step forward on scrutiny. We then need to move at some stage to a vote because there's no mandate about the terms for leaving the EU. There's a mandate to leave, but the basis upon which we leave is critically important. It's going to be a decision that affects generations to come. It affects the economy, business and working people. And we must know the terms. All we know from the referendum is that we're leaving.
Well, talking about terms, Keir Starmer, what exactly are the terms that your party favours? Because there's an awful lot of ambiguity on the Labour side as well. I mean, where exactly do you stand on the single market? Where do you stand on the freedom of movement of people?
Well, I don't think there is any ambiguity. We've just had a 6 or 7 hour debate with many contributions, and repeatedly the Labour Party representatives have said access to the single market and an adjustment to freedom of movement. There are plenty of other issues, of course, on security, counter-terrorism, Northern Ireland, but obviously they're the main issues, and we've had clarity and we've had unanimity pretty much in the chamber all afternoon.
But hang on a minute, you said an adjustment to the freedom of movement of people. I mean, what exactly does that adjustment mean? Diane Abbott is suggesting we should just continue allowing people in. Rachel Reeves, on the other hand, has said if that were the case, there'd be riots in the streets. So where do you stand?
We have to accept that there are many people who are concerned about immigration and freedom of movement, and an adjustment to the rules in light of the result has to at least be part of the negotiations. Obviously those negotiations need to be shrewd, they need to be clever, but we need the best deal for the economy and for jobs. And what's astonishing is that the Prime Minister is not putting the economy first, and I think that's the critical reason that we need to see the plans.
OK, well, let me talk to Kwasi Kwarteng. I mean, we see the pound literally hanging on every one of the Prime Minister's words. It rose, it fell, it rose today. I mean, this ambiguity in your party, in the government, is really damaging the economy, isn't it?
I don't think there's any ambiguity. I mean, the fact is there was a referendum, a clear, decisive result in favour of leaving the EU. And when the Prime Minister said Brexit means Brexit, people laughed, but that's exactly what it means. What it doesn't mean is staying in the EU on the terms that we've been in it for 40 years. So there's going to be change. I think people are going through a grieving process on both sides of the House. They feel aggrieved, they're upset. I can fully understand that. But we're certainly moving forward. I think the people generally want us to get on with it. And I look forward to leaving the EU in 2 or 3 years.
But crucially, Kwasi Kwarteng, has the government rather now conceded that there will be parliamentary scrutiny of the process?
I don't think the government ever questioned the fact that Brexit is a huge step in our country's history. And of course, given that we are a parliamentary democracy, there would be ample scope for wide debate, questions, arguments, conversation, discussions, you name it, about the nature of Brexit. I can assure you that we will be here for very, very many weeks and years discussing this issue.
Why not go the whole hog and have a vote? Otherwise, you're just going to be a talking shop. You know better than the Iranian parliament.
Well, we are actually going to have a vote. We're going to have a vote, as everyone knows, as has been said a number of times, on the Great Repeal Bill. We're going to repeal the 1972 European Communities Act, and we're going to leave the EU.
But that is a vote on what happens after we've exited. We want a vote on what the basic terms of negotiation are, and they really matter. They matter, and they're causing great uncertainty. The government has rightly accepted that the plans will now be put before Parliament. They've never said that before, and they'll be scrutinised. That is a big step in the right direction.
OK, let me ask you one other question on foreign policy. So yesterday, Boris Johnson, the Foreign Secretary, welcomed the idea of demonstrations outside the Russian embassy over Syria. Today, a senior Labour spokesman called for demonstrations outside the American embassy. Is this the future of British foreign policy, demonstrating outside embassies in London?
Well, John, you'll have to forgive me. I've been in the chamber all day long, and I've come straight out to do this interview, so I'm really not in a position to deal with what's been going on today. Because
do you think it's a good idea? Should we demonstrate outside the American embassy?
John, I just don't know
Matt,
what has been proposed or hasn't been proposed. Matt, I'm so sorry.
OK. All right, Kwasi Kwarteng, what do you think?
No. I don't think government ministers necessarily calling for demonstrations is that usual. I saw Boris Johnson make those remarks. I think he's got grave and important concerns about the behaviour of the Russians in Syria, and I think it was, for him legitimate to raise those concerns. I don't know. I'm not someone. I'm not a naturally a person who demonstrates on the streets necessarily, but I think he expressed his displeasure very clearly.
OK. Thanks to both of you, Kwasi Kwarteng, Keir Starmer. Thanks a lot.
Well, the Prime Minister has come under more pressure from MPs to allow a vote on her government's Brexit strategy. Labour insisted that Parliament had to be given the opportunity to vote on it before the UK begins its formal departure from the EU. But ministers insist that Parliament can't be allowed to have a veto. During a debate called by Labour, some Conservatives also expressed unease about the degree of parliamentary oversight. Our Deputy Political Editor, John Pienaar, has this report.
Should MPs have the final say, Prime Minister?
Theresa May wasn't saying, but she knew the answer. She's in charge, and no one will block Britain's path out of the EU if she's got any say in it. The Prime Minister and her team mean to be the ones speaking for Britain. Government and MPs don't always face the same way. But MPs who say they accept the EU referendum have been told in the Commons they've no choice by the most Eurosceptic minister in the Cabinet.
What I'm not going to allow is any party to have a veto on the decision to leave the European Union. That is the first key decision.
Opposition MPs and some Tories want a say and a vote in deciding Britain's negotiating position as it leaves the EU. They were told ministers won't show their hand, and they had their orders from the voters.
Security terms, in control of our borders terms, in democratic terms, and in terms of the access to markets across the whole world, the European Union, and all of the opportunities we have outside. And the British people did vote for that, 17.5 million of them.
At question time, the Prime Minister again made clear trading with Europe may mean give and take, but EU migration would be controlled as part of an ambitious deal.
And that will include the maximum possible access to the European market for firms to trade with and operate within the European market. But I'm also clear that the vote of the British people said that we should control the movement of people from the EU into the UK.
The Labour leader mocked the absence of detail.
This is a government that drew up no plans for Brexit, that now has no strategy for negotiating Brexit, and offers no clarity, no transparency, and no chance of scrutiny of the process for developing a strategy.
The government is still working out its negotiating position, and ministers are still divided. But most MPs never wanted Britain to leave, and many fear Brexit could harm the economy. There'll be many chances to vote before Brexit becomes reality, but by ruling out any formal opportunity for Parliament to approve or veto the deal, the government's staking not just Britain's place in Europe, but its own authority to govern on the outcome. From MPs on all sides who opposed Brexit and lost, persistent fears.
Nobody voted on the 23rd of June to take an axe to the economy or to destroy jobs and livelihoods.
Many people in the country don't think that there is a policy to put the national interest first. They think there is a policy to put people's narrow ideological interests.
You've got to take the country on this new journey with you. This cannot be the political equivalent of the country being put to sleep for 2 years in an anaesthetic and waking up in a magical new land.
This is a democratic process that will impact on our citizens to a significant degree and which should be subject to the most intense scrutiny of this place and the most intense scrutiny of devolved administrations as well.
But the victorious Leave side insist it's time to have faith.
The British people got it right, and it's our job to respect it.
Members opposite want to split us up by saying everything has to go wrong. If you wish to negotiate successfully, show confidence, show optimism.
MPs will have more chances to have their say. Brexit will take time, but negotiations are for ministers, and they'll stand or fall by the best deal they can get to take Britain out. John Pienaar, BBC News, Westminster.
So just to underline, the government says there won't be a vote on its negotiating strategy before the legal process of leaving the EU begins in March of next year. There will be votes on the Great Repeal Bill. That's the legislation to end the supremacy of EU law in the UK. That is promised for the Queen's speech next spring. And it is expected that MPs will have a vote on that final Brexit deal sometime in 2019. So let's talk to Laura Kuenssberg, our political editor at Westminster. And what do you make of the way that this pressure has been building on the Prime Minister for more oversight in Parliament, Laura?
Well, it doesn't seem right now, Hugh, that ministers are going to budge on this. Technically, they don't have to offer a vote at this stage. And in a sense, why would they risk something that would be an extremely serious defeat if they fail to get enough MPs on side? But I think there are two things that are really important, not just from today's debate, but a very similar rehearsal of the arguments that happened in the Commons on Monday. First of all, when it comes to this fiendishly complicated process of untangling ourselves from the EU, MPs are now clearly not just going to say, yes ma'am, 3 bags full to whatever Theresa May decides to do. And secondly, it's been really striking to see how senior MPs from the Labour Party, from the Liberal Democrat Party, from the SNP, and also some very well-known Tory faces are kind of collaborating on all of this to push the government, to call for more scrutiny, and frankly to send a pretty loud message to ministers that they just don't think it's good enough that they are sharing so very little of their intentions for how we get out of the European Union. So two very interesting markers have been put down, if you like, this week. Parliament is going to be running at high volume. In a sense, it's got its mojo back. There's a sense on the green benches that MPs feel this is a huge moment and they are absolutely determined that they will have their say by hook or by crook. But you know, it's also important to remember we're in the foothills here of a process. This is going to be like climbing a whole range of mountains, and the big moves, the big power plays in how we actually leave the European Union are months and years away. And the mood in Parliament, the mood in the public, and the mood around the whole continent might feel very, very different by the time we actually get to those crunch moments.
All right, Laura, thanks very much again. Laura Kuenssberg there with her thoughts at Westminster tonight.